Hello and welcome everyone to the Marr Show. A few weeks ago, I was looking up on Iffy's online store, which is Ideal Factory's official North American and European site where you could buy goods, get pre-orders for some of the games, and etc. And one of the things that they had pre-ordered was a figurine of Purple Heart, which is based on Yuk from Cyber Dimension Neptuna for Goddesses Online. Ironically, this episode's airing literally after the cool figurines video I just did, so it's kind of ironic. The figurine itself looks absolutely gorgeous. I mean, this is just a superb and elegant looking figurine. It just looks unbelievable. And I would say that I got it pre-ordered. The only problem was I was too late. Even though I had my alarm clock set for the time that they were scheduled to put the pre-orders up, I was unfortunate enough to miss it. So I figured, you know what, maybe I can find it elsewhere. Unfortunately, every site that had it listed had no option to buy it. However, I thought eBay, that'll be a good place. But then when I look at the prices, it was expensive. Some places were listing it for $300 to even $600. Yikes. That's gonna make my wallet really hate me. I mean, my wallet is mad at me enough for spending so much. I don't want the wallet to leave me. But I figured, who knows, maybe someday I'll come across it at a convention for a cheaper price, or someone will, luckily enough to be kind enough to lower the figurine to maybe $250 or even $200. I mean, that's the reason why I got that uni figurine that I showcased in the video, because I waited till I found a dealer that was selling it for a reasonable price from Japan. So I was kind of moping about, you know, kind of sad that, well, that kind of sucks. I wish I got that figurine and now it's up there in the most expensive stuff. And that actually got me to thinking, and considering this is kind of funny considering the last two videos were based on stuff in my collection, what about the things that I want to get but are expensive as ever? When it comes to video game collecting, it's a hard hobby to get into. Not saying there's not a way to get into collecting video games. No, there's tons of great ways to get into them in a cheaper and more reliable way too. But unfortunately, there's some games out there that we would love to have in our collection that are outrageous in prices, mainly because either due to it sold very poorly or being exclusive to a certain time period. Stuff like that that makes you think there's some stuff that I would love to have in my video game collection, but are just expensive as ever. And I'm not talking about the golden $1,000 plus games that are so hard to come by. Like, even stuff that's even like $200 to even $400 is too much, because with life, we have so much going on. We gotta pay bills, we gotta make sure that our families are safe, we gotta make sure that we're supplying food and health to ourselves, so it's hard for us to go out and pay so much. I mean, I don't know how people can even go out and buy a new $300 phone after this breaks after 3 months. Why don't you lot go ahead and get yourselves one of these? They're really reliable, and the best part, they're not gonna destroy us in the future of 2096. I think. I'm just making that up, but you know what? Regardless of smartphones, I'm too scared to touch one, but we're not talking about phones, we're talking about video games, more particularly expensive video games. And there's nothing wrong with us wanting a game that's over our budget limit, because that's something that we look forward to grabbing in our collection, either because the game looks absolutely amazing and we will have a blast playing for it, or because it represents a video game console that we love, that we would love to represent as a key point in the console's history. And today I figured I'd do a little, this video is going to be kind of different. I'm not even going to know what I'm going to call this video, because not only am I going to share 5 awesome video game stuff that's way overpriced that I would love to add to my collection, but also share a few games that I have that, even though are pretty hard to come by now, I got a good deal overall for it. So today I'm going to showcase the video games, or the expensive / rare video games that I wish I owned / the ones I do have. And this is also going to be a pretty interesting video, because this is going to lead up to a little special lesson, or at least a lesson I've learned when it comes to collecting video games as a whole. Aside from saving money, but that's not the lesson I'm talking about. And in the comment section below, I would love to hear what you guys' expensive / rare video games you would love to have in your collection are, or what rare games you have in your collection that you're proud of owning, that you got either really cheap or you saved enough money to grab it before it went even higher. Because yes, face it, video games right now, especially in the retro video game market, are not gonna go cheaper anyway, unless some sort of video game crash happens, but we don't really want that to happen. But regardless, I'm gonna start this video out with talk about two things that are pretty expensive and hard to come by. That's for a system that I absolutely love and going for a complete collection as of recently. As you guys know, I'm a huge Nintendo 64 fan. Heck, recently I just got these custom N64 labels here, which are really nice and is something that I highly recommend if you are collecting N64 games. They will really help you in terms of like trying to categorize your games. It really helps. But there's two things on that system that I would love to get for my collection, and I think everyone knows which ones they are. First, I'm going to talk about the most obvious being the Nintendo 64 disk drive. I'm not going to bore you guys with like the whole history of the system because there's a lot of videos out there that already discuss the history and the poor sales figures for it. But I just want to say that I wouldn't mind having this in my collection, not to play it because I don't have an N64 Japanese system, but it's just a part of the system's history. Throughout the entire life of the Nintendo 64, there was so much development hell going on within this thing. It was supposed to be released much sooner than what people were expecting it to be, but so much development time went into it that by the time it was already released, which it was released only in Japan, people were already interested in the next generation of video game systems. Plus, trying to get the Nintendo 64 disk drive was sort of odd. It wasn't really sold in stores, but rather you had to email to get the system because it was part of a special internet company. And I'm not saying I wouldn't want to get every single disk drive game, but I wouldn't mind just having a Nintendo 64 DD just because of, not because I will play it, but to preserve a history within the Nintendo 64. It was kind of an important part into making the Nintendo 64 and trying to figure out how to release the add-on, and it'll eventually get released, but kind of late into the system. Trying to find this thing is pretty expensive nowadays. You can see it for like $1,000 with the complete set, and getting some of the disc drive games sometimes cost like $100 to $400 per game almost. When it comes to collecting games on the N64, most of them aren't that bad. Sure, there's a few expensive ones out there. The ones that I probably paid the most so far is Mario Party 3 and Conker's Bad Fur Day. This one's more pricey, but I think I paid it $50 a couple years ago, and then Mario Party 3 is going up in price, but luckily I was able to get it for about $60. Yes, I know I'm very poor in spending money, but these were the two that are pretty expensive to get as of this time of recording. But there are many other games for the system that are pretty hard to come by and are more expensive, like up to the $200 range. You got games like Worms, Armageddon, Stunt Racers 64, but I wouldn't say Holy Grail, but the most expensive one out of all the N64 games that were released in North America is Clay Fighter's 63 1/3 Sculpture Cut. This is sort of a special edition of Clay Fighter's 63 1/3. The game itself, or the original game, got mixed receptions a bit, but the special edition did fix a few things. It adjusted the combat system a little bit, fixed the menu, making it a lot more cleaner and simpler. It also had a new storylines, a few minor adjustments, but also has 4 new characters in it. I would say this would be a better version of Clay Fighter 63 1/3, but for one, I have not played the original, and secondly, the chances of me finding it is going to be hard to come by, as this was a Blockbuster's exclusive at the time, and customers could only rent it. Sure, you could enter a competition to rent a copy, but I don't even think there was that many winners, and now, since Blockbusters is kind of sort of out of business. Last time I heard there was like 9 operational in Alaska, I think. But I wouldn't mind having it because I would love to compare the two titles in a future video if I ever do come across them to see, okay, is the Sculptures Cut really better than the original? Because the original Clay Fighter 63 1/3. Man, that's just funny, just how they make fun of the title. I heard it got pretty mixed to poor reviews, so maybe this would have been, I'm not expecting it to be a masterpiece, but probably would have made it a little bit more playable and something that people say, yeah, it's worth it. Or the one cool thing I will admit, these are the N64 labels that someone made. I think the seller was Geek Neto. I'm sorry if I butchered that. I think it's Geek Ento or something. But again, these labels are really cool, and something that I thought was pretty interesting as I was looking through the labels is that they actually have labels for both Clay Fighter 63 1/3 and Sculpture's Cut. So that will probably be the very last label I will be putting on to complete my N64 library. And again, if you are looking forward to putting N labels on your N64 games, I highly recommend checking this guy out. There's a few other people that have made custom N64 labels, but these I think yuck the best, and they're only like 20 bucks on eBay, so I definitely recommend getting these. If you are seriously collecting to N64 games, you will not regret it. Next up is DuckTales 2. I love DuckTales on the original Nintendo. It's a really fun platform game for the system. Of course, I prefer DuckTales Remastered just a little bit more due to the fact that it just feels even more like you're playing a cartoon. Plus, you got most of the surviving cast members voicing it. And DuckTales 2 is a game that I wouldn't mind having in my Nintendo or my NES collection. I don't usually get NES games that often, but I would love to get DuckTales 2. It's mostly the same game, but there's a few different sayings within it that makes it stand out just a little bit more, such as the fact that you can upgrade Scrooge's cane to access into new areas, as well as the fact that you can go back into stages you already beaten to collect more money if you want to get the best ending, which I think is really awesome. Once again, one of those games that came in very late in the NES library. By the time it came out, it didn't sell that many copies because players were already wanting to get into the 16-bit era with the Genesis and the Super Nintendo. There was also a Game Boy version of this game, but I heard that it's not exactly that great. And the game, of course, is pretty expensive, going pretty pricey up to the $100 ranges, even just for the card alone. There's also a Famicom version of this as well that's slightly cheaper. I mean, there are places that are selling it a little bit less, but it's still relatively up in like the $60 to $90 range that I have noticed. However, there's great news for people who really want to play DuckTales 2, as well as other Disney afternoon games such as Tailspin, Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers, Darkwing Duck, and the original DuckTales. And Chip 'n Dale Rescue Rangers 2, I almost forgot that, as the games last year were actually released for PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and PC in the Disney Afternoon Collection. Unfortunately, it has yet to come out to the Switch. I'm really hoping it does in the future, but I'll probably end up getting it for the PlayStation 4. It's been out for a year, I just haven't really got around to it yet, because I just now remembered it. But still, it's great to know that people can still play it and give it a shot if they want to without spending so much to buy the original card. Because I think it's only like 20 bucks on the PSN, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, this one here is kind of different. Not saying it's not like anything grand, but it's interesting to talk about this game in regarding Wii U titles that people probably would have missed. This game is called Devil's Thirds, and it was a more action-based, more mature game, probably more mature than any other game I have listed here. It started development in 2008 along with THQ. However, after the company shut down, development still kind of continued, but not a whole lot. That wasn't until when the director of the game came up to Satoru Iwata and asked to put it as a Wii U exclusive for the game, and of course he agreed. This title a lot of people were pretty interested in, as it would have gave a very mature title for a system that was marketed towards kids. Of course, the more better mature title is Bayonetta 2, but whatever, it's nice to have more variety in the system to occur to all types of players. And people were pretty interested in Devil's Thirds. Granted, the development, they didn't know when it was going to be released, but when it did get released, the reviews were awful. People did not like this game. They did not love the controls, the story, the characters, the weapons, or it just felt like a really buggy game and people did not like it at all. The only really positive aspect about Devil's Thirds was that the multiplayer was good. However, it has been shut down as of December 28th of 2016. So already people are probably wondering, why buy the game? Well, mostly as a novelty. I'm not expecting the game to be good or blow me away, but it's just a nice little novelty because the game went through such a long development cycle. But trying to get the game is another story. Not that it's super duper rare, but trying to find it online can be a bit pricey. Now granted, I've seen like European copies go pretty cheap, but as for the North American versions, I've seen prices go from $60 to even close to $115. Would I actually play the game and enjoy it? Probably not, but as more of a novelty than anything in my Wii U library. And then the last thing I want to talk about that I would love to have in my collection is actually a video game system, or like a kind of a portable video game system in itself, but it's one that I think looks really cool, and I discovered this on the Gaming Historian. He did a video years ago about the Vectrex made by Western Technologies. This system looks absolutely beautiful. Unfortunately, the system didn't really do that much as it was releasing pretty close to the video game Crash, but the system itself was pretty interesting looking. The Vectrex is named pretty much after the vector monitor and the graphics itself, and it just looks so beautiful and just looks more like you could play at an arcade at home, which is what they generally was hoping it accomplished. The controller looks really nice, plus the good thing, even if you don't have any games for it, there is one built-in game within the system itself, which is pretty cool. That way you can say, well, I don't have any games, but at least I have one game to play during the time as I could try to find the other games. The games also had color screen projectors that you could put on the monitor, as the game system itself couldn't produce colors, but it doesn't really look that bad without color because the vector graphics just look beautiful. But of course, finding the Vectrex is easier said than done. The system itself can go around $300 to $400 almost. But I would love to have the same because it looks really cool to play. I love the Vectrex visual style of it. The controller actually looks really nice. The fact that it's actually built in within the system itself is a really nice touch. Plus, you can kind of make it portable. Granted, you have to plug it in, but say if you want to go to a friend's house, there's a grip behind it that you could carry with it, and it just looks so beautiful and majestic. I mean, out of all the little hardware consoles that were released during that time when so many video game companies or companies was releasing video game consoles one after one, the Vectrex stood out a whole lot compared to all the systems at the time, so I wouldn't mind grabbing it. But that does it for like the stuff that I would love to have in my collection. I want to go ahead and do a quick sum of like games that I do have that are pretty hard to come by, not like super rare, but stuff that's pretty pricey nowadays. And then there's one game in particular that I would love to do a good story on and talk about a little lesson to get out of this video, or something that I got when I got this game. The first game is Conker Live and Reloaded. It's actually not that bad of a remake. The visual style looks really good. It actually looks more like an early Xbox 360 game actually, instead of an original Xbox. And even though a lot of people say it's not as good as the original, I will agree to that statement because they censored a few things and just doesn't have that strong hitter and laughter in regards to compared to the original. Heck, the facial expressions in this game is not as good as they were in the Nintendo 64. But it's still not that bad of a remake. I do appreciate what they were trying to do, but trying to get the original Xbox game can be a little pricey nowadays. I remember getting this for, I think like probably $80, and I kind of see it now from 70 to about 120 at time to time. It depends on which sites you go to get the complete case. What the heck? The complete case with the manual and stuff. And I just realized I have Incredibles in it. Why was I putting Incredibles in there? I have no idea. This is a game that my good friend Brandon talked about a while back, and it's one that looks fun. I'm not really into realistic racing games, but this one looks pretty interesting, and that's Test Drive Evil Destruction. It's kind of a realistic racing game, but has a more in-depth combat system in like taking down vehicles and causing damage to other drivers and so on, and it's just a blast being able to ram your vehicles into others. And there's a lot of great competition modes within the multiplayer. You could play as buses, ambulances, funeral vehicles. It's just a great fun game, and I'm really happy that I got to pick this up. I got this $30, but a lot of sites were going up to $60 to $80 for this for some reason, but still is an absolutely fun game. I'm not really a huge fan of the Test Drive series, but this one here, to see it ram into other vehicles and just, it's so satisfying just to ram into other cars and so on. It's so much fun. I would love to see this come back as a HD remake or even a whole reboot with this kind of gameplay in mind. I'm not a huge fan of horror games. Not that I'm against them, but I just get too scared easily. But there's one horror game that is pretty interesting. That's Clock Tower on the PlayStation 1. In this game, you pretty much run from a serial killer that uses a giant scissor. Kind of silly, but it's actually kind of terrifying. And I was able to get this for around $50 a few years ago, and nowadays it's pretty high up there. Unfortunately, I have not beaten the game all the way because, again, get scared easily, but it's still nice to have this because the whole ideal of a man with scissors chasing after you around a hotel or whatever is still pretty interesting, and hopefully I will get to play this because I do like the idea. It's just I get too scared. Okay, this one is pretty interesting, I have to say. I was at a local game store in the town next over, and I go there time to time. I get a lot of good deals, but one of the best deals I got was getting Game & Watch Parachute, complete in box, and has the batteries to use for it, and it still works to this day actually. Usually a lot of sites list this certain Game & Watch up to $200. It was the very first Game & Watch that the store actually ever had within it. They never had a Game & Watch in the store ever, and they just recently had this the same day as I came in. I saw it and I was like, you know, I wouldn't mind having a Game & Watch, because Mr. Game & Watch is one of my favorite Smash Brothers characters I love to use in Smash Brothers. And I love the whole nostalgic look of the Game & Watch. Heck, I even got a booklet that talks about all the Game & Watches made, and I would love to start collecting them. I'm not going for a complete Game & Watch collection, but love to have some to just look at how fun they are. And they're really fun games still, actually. And even though this is listed like at $200 on eBay, I got this for around $90, which is really good, I have to say. And I'm proud of having it. This is just a really awesome box. I mean, heck, I'll go ahead and pull the Game & Watch out, and oh, it's upside down actually. There we go. See, it just looks so beautiful, I have to say. This next game, I have a little story to talk about, and it also kind of ties in with a lesson in regards to people who are wanting to get games that are pretty hard to come by or pretty high pricey. Once again, I'm going to mention the Gaming Historian because he's an amazing YouTuber. I just love his content. Long time ago, in 2012, 2013, I can't remember now, he made a video on a game called Little Samson for the original Nintendo Entertainment System. When I saw gameplay footage for it, it looks amazing, it looked really fun, it looked like a lot of excitement and tight platforming controls, and I love the music, and I have used the music from Little Samson in my videos in one way or another. And at the time, the game was about $275 for the card alone. Kind of pricey. I mean, I was a senior in high school, so me getting it's like, it'll be a little bit before I grab it. So I didn't really use any of my. Sometimes I work the summer with my father, helping with his farm and all, and I didn't really use the money to grab the game just yet because I wanted to buy like some of the newer games for like the Wii or the Wii U that recently came out, stuff like that. And by the time I was ready to go ahead and grab Little Samson, the price already skyrocketed. It is expensive to get now for the original Nintendo. It goes up for like $1,000 to even $1,500, I saw it once. And unfortunately, the game has been a victim of people taking it and selling reproduction cartridges, switching the little copper leads with a different game entirely, so grabbing it online is a gamble. And a lot of people have now debated whether or not to even get Little Samson at all. Some people just see it as like some trophy now, almost. Like, it's not even worth to buy the game. Some people just say, yes, this is a nice little trophy, instead of just a game that'll be fun. And it's a shame because I really wanted to give Little Samson a shot. I know some people probably say, why not just emulate on your computer? Which is true, I could, but I'd rather play the game how it was intended, with a game controller on a console. And unfortunately, the chances of Little Samson being ported to a virtual console is very, very slim, I have to say. But then about 2 years ago, I was really getting into the Famicom. I was looking at the games like, some of these games look really cool, I would love to play them. And I decided to get the Famicom for, I wanted to get a Famicom to open up a huge library of games, to start Famicom collecting, to try out games for it. And it'll be, holy crap, that scared me. The controllers fell behind me. Okay, that scared me for a bit. But yeah, I wanted to start collecting Famicoms, or Famicom games to play on, because I just want to open that library to importing Japanese games. And as I was looking, comparing prices to which was a good system, I also came across something that I completely forgot about. Now, even though here in North America we got Little Samson, in Japan they got Little. It's pretty much the same thing. There's really no difference whatsoever. There's even no English differences. The only thing that's different is the fact that it was called Little instead of Little Samson. I saw Little for around $200, and I was like, I got the money, I'm gonna get the Famicom, which I paid like $50 for with the cables included, and it's like, this is that one-time chance to play Little. And I know some people say, you spend $200 on one game? Why? Well, keep in mind as well, would you rather pay $200 plus an additional $50 to open up a new library of games to collect, or would you rather pay $1,500 for a game that may or may not be a replica? The answer is pretty obvious in my opinion. And when I finally did play Little on the Famicom, it was worth the wait. I waited 5 years probably to play Little Samson Little, and the game is so much fun. It's one of my top 10 favorite Famicom original Nintendo games. It is so much fun. Nowadays, Little is actually getting more expensive to get, so I think I grabbed it at the right time. And to be fair, that's a lesson to really take in from this video. If you want something in your collection, just wait. I mean, yes, sure, the game might go higher in price over time, but sometimes you can find it for a reasonably good deal. I mean, I would rather pay $200 plus a $50 for a system to open a major library of games than pay so much for a game that I'd be afraid that it'll be just a fake, that'll be switched out with a different game entirely. And I'm so happy to have Little. Yes, face it, when there's games out there that are so expensive, hard to find, it may seem impossible, but nothing is ever impossible. It's just a matter of waiting and saving money. So don't doubt yourself in saying you're never gonna get, like, I don't know, wild guns for the Super Nintendo. It's just a matter of waiting, finding a good deal, and just saving up money. So don't ever say, I'll never get this, cause who knows? You might one day, like how I might get a Nintendo 64 DD soon, or find that purple hot figurine sometime soon. I mean, it's possible. We just don't know because we don't know what happens in the future. But yes, those are all the games that I would love to have but don't have, and the games that are pretty pricey but I'm glad to have in my collection. And to be fair, waiting for games to find a good deal on will make you appreciate owning that expensive game even more, because you worked so hard to save money to buy that expensive game, or even just out of coincidence, without even thinking about it for the longest time, just come across it at a dealer's line. It's like, oh, I found it! It's my lucky day and got a good deal. So in the comment section below, what are the games that you would love to have in your collection that are expensive? What games that are pretty expensive but you are happy to have in your collection? Let me know. I'm not sure how I'm gonna title this video, but I think it's just a fun video idea I just thought of. So anyway, thank you guys for watching this, and I will see you guys in the next Del Marr Show episode. Bye bye!